It's Tuesday, 17 September. Welcome to the PDB Afternoon Bulletin. I'm Mike Baker, your eyes and ears on the world stage. All right, let's get briefed. First, the PDB team is currently working their contacts and sources to gather insight into the attack in Lebanon earlier today that targeted pagers used by Hezbollah. Several individuals were killed and thousands injured as the pagers carried by Hezbollah fighters and officials, not to mention the Iranian ambassador to Lebanon, exploded. Hezbollah, calling this attack the worst security breach of their organization to date, is accusing Israel. Israel has made no comment. Now, as the details are still coming to light, well, we'll bring you the latest during tomorrow morning's PDB. All right, for today, we'll start things off with the war in Ukraine, where estimates show that deaths and injuries from the conflict on both sides have reached roughly 1 million, now fueling concerns of an impending population crisis. Then, we'll turn to a report that reveals democracy is backsliding across the globe. Oh, well, that's cheery news. With 2023 seeing the largest decline in credible elections and parliamentary oversight in nearly 50 years. I'm sure that all of that has nothing to do with the efforts of Russia, China, and Iran to sow discontent, create divides, and generally do what they can through aggressive disinformation campaigns to discredit democracy. But first, our afternoon spotlight. I want to begin with Moscow's war in Eastern Europe, where the number of Ukrainians and Russians killed or wounded in the war has reached roughly 1 million individuals. According to an exclusive report in the Wall Street Journal, both countries, which were already grappling with shrinking pre-war populations, are now facing a potential long-term population crisis. As we've previously discussed on the PDB, Western observers have had a difficult time, that's putting it mildly, pinning down casualty estimates, as Ukraine and Russia have consistently put out contradictory figures that are widely mistrusted. But a confidential Ukrainian estimate from earlier this year, exclusively reviewed by the Journal, put the number of dead Ukrainian troops at roughly 80,000, with another 400,000 estimated to be wounded. On the Russian side, Western intelligence sources told the Journal that they estimate as many as 200,000 dead troops and roughly 400,000 wounded. The war has taken a particularly bloody turn since August in eastern Ukraine, where the Kremlin has reportedly been using waves of poorly trained soldiers to push forward in the Donetsk region, all part of Putin's so-called meat grinder strategy. The losses are leading to larger concerns about the devastating long-term impact that the war will have for future population growth in both countries. Russia and Ukraine were already struggling with population declines before the war due to economic upheavals, and those declines are now accelerating. The situation is particularly dire for Ukraine, as they only have roughly a quarter of the population of their neighbors in Russia. They had already lost roughly 10 million citizens to Russia due to Moscow's invasion and capture of various parts and pieces of Ukrainian territory prior to the war. For example, by seizing Crimea in 2014, 2.4 million Ukrainians suddenly became citizens of Russia. Prior to the invasion in 2022, Ukraine's population was estimated at roughly 40 million. That's according to Ukrainian government officials who spoke with the Journal. Between Russia's seizure of territory in the south and the east, military and civilian deaths, and the fact that more than 6 million Ukrainians have fled since the start of the war, well, the population in Ukrainian-controlled territory is now estimated to be between just 25 million and 27 million. Again, that's down from what was estimated prior to the invasion in 2022 of 40 million. Look, I'm not great at math, but I know that's a staggering decline. To make matters worse, Ukraine's birth rate has collapsed to its lowest level on record. According to the Journal, over the first half of 2024, 3 times as many people died as were born, with the number of births declining 9% over the previous year. As a result, Ukrainian President Zelensky has resisted pressure to draft men between the ages of 18 and 25 due to the fact that most have not yet had children. We should note, the average age of a Ukrainian soldier is roughly 43 years. Ukrainian officials say they simply can't risk the further erosion of their future demographic prospects by recruiting younger fighters. Now, despite their much larger population, estimated at roughly 144 million, Russia is facing similar concerns. One of the motivating factors behind Putin's push into Eastern Europe, according to the journal, is to boost Russia's declining population by absorbing Ukrainians. Aside from their staggering troop losses, at least 600,000 Russians have fled the country since the war began, and that's sparked a labor shortage that the Kremlin is still struggling to address. Russia's birth rate also declined to a 25-year low over the first 6 months of 2024, with the number of births falling under 100,000 for the first time. To address the crisis, the Putin regime has been working to Russify their occupied territories by pressuring Ukrainians into citizenship or, in more extreme cases, abducting Ukrainian children from the occupied territories. Putin has been charged with war crimes by the ICC for the large-scale abduction and resettlement of Ukrainian children. Domestically, according to a Newsweek report, in addition to tax incentives for families, Moscow has ordered Russians to use their breaks at work to procreate. Seriously. Now, Putin mandating that people should be doing the mess around at the office during their lunch breaks to increase the population is crazy. I mean, how do you say I'm just going to the break room to get a snack in Russian? But Putin's main focus does remain on Ukraine. An expert on European demographics with the Center for Liberal Strategies told the journal, quote, "Demographics is a priority for Putin, and he wants to use Ukraine and its people to consolidate the Slavic core of Russia," end quote. He added that for Ukraine, the dilemma is existential. How many people can you lose in a war before you lose your future? Coming up, we'll turn to a report that reveals democracy is backsliding across the globe, with 2023 seeing the largest decline in credible elections in nearly 50 years. I'll be right back. Welcome back to the Afternoon Bulletin. Some depressing news for fans of freedom. Global democratic integrity is crumbling, with 2023 witnessing the steepest decline in the perception and belief in credible elections and parliamentary oversight in nearly 50 years. According to a new report by the International Institute for Democracy and Electoral Assistance, otherwise known as International IDEA. Yeah, everybody loves an acronym. The Stockholm-based organization attributed the downturn to factors like government intimidation, that would do it, foreign interference, disinformation, and the misuse of artificial intelligence in political campaigns. Released on Tuesday, the Global Report on the State of Democracy analyzed democratic performance in 158 countries from 1975 to the present. The findings were stark. 47% of all countries have seen a decline in key democratic indicators over the past 5 years, marking the 8th consecutive year of global democratic backsliding. Now, this backsliding, for want of a better word, when democratic principles weaken, manifests in lower voter turnout, contested election results, and diminishing parliamentary oversight. That all sounds familiar. According to International IDEA's report, the percentage of the voting age who cast ballots, get this, fell from 65% in 2008 to just 56% in 2023. Now think about that. You live in a country where you can vote, and on average, almost half choose not to. That's pathetic. The report noted that 1 in 3 elections worldwide is being contested in some form, leading to increased court appeals to settle outcomes. Disinformation and AI manipulation in campaigns were singled out as threats to the integrity of democratic processes. The rise of AI has made spreading misinformation easier, influencing voter behavior and, of course, eroding trust in elections. These issues affect not just fragile states, but also established democracies. Now, while some regions maintained stable democratic performance, others face declines. Africa has seen diverse democratic trends, with rising coups and civil conflicts challenging the region's democratic consolidation. Recent coups in Mali, Guinea, and Burkina Faso raise concerns about the future of democracy in these nations. In terms of the rule of law on the continent, only 3 African nations, Botswana, Namibia, and Cabo Verde, rank among the top 50 globally. Countries like Tunisia, Mauritius, Burkina Faso, and Niger saw significant declines, while Zambia made notable gains, maintaining regular multi-party elections for the past 3 decades. Civil conflicts, such as those in Sudan and Ethiopia's Tigray region, have further weakened democratic structures. Western Asia is seeing widespread challenges, with over 1/3 of the countries struggling with the declining rule of law and civil liberties. Similarly, Europe is experiencing democratic backsliding, though countries like Montenegro and Latvia have made progress in strengthening institutions. Democratic principles across the Americas are also, unfortunately, in sharp decline, with nations like Haiti, Nicaragua, and Nicolas Maduro's authoritarian regime in Venezuela showing the most concerning trends. Over the past 5 years, more countries have seen drops in democratic performance, with worsening governance and attacks on press freedom. El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala are also seeing rapid declines in these areas. Militarization in response to crime has also eroded civil liberties in countries such as Chile, Ecuador, and Honduras. Despite these setbacks, 78% of nations in the Americas, still maintain strong representation through elected governments. The situation is mixed in the Asia-Pacific region. While Fiji, the Maldives, and Thailand improved democratic governance, countries like Afghanistan, there's a surprise, and Myanmar, formerly Burma, suffered setbacks. As we reported on the PDB, the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan in 2021, unrecognized by any country as legitimate, has led to, putting it diplomatically, an oppressive regime. Myanmar's civil war further destabilizes that country. The report paints a grim picture of the state of democracy worldwide. The steady erosion of democratic values, fueled by disinformation, manipulation, and growing authoritarianism, poses a threat, obviously, to global governance. That, my friends, is the PDB Afternoon Bulletin for Tuesday, 17 September. If you have any questions or comments, please reach out to me at pdb@thefirsttv.com. Now, if you happen to be hankering for an ad-free PDB experience, we've got you covered. Just become a premium member of the President's Daily Brief by visiting pdbpremium.com. It's considered by many, or at least by me and the rest of the PDB team, to be the best value in the news industry. It's mere pennies. I'm talking mere pennies. How many times have you heard a phrase like that? Mere pennies a day to stay informed and up to date on stuff you should be informed and up to date on. Give it a try. I'm Mike Baker, and I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, stay informed, stay safe, stay cool.